Hello, welcome to the second part on these recommendations for the FE exam, specifically for the electrical engineering. I'm gonna go over the final study recommendations and more on the materials provided to do well on the exam. I was running out of time on the other one, but let's get through on this one. So, study recommendations, like I said before, just to recap a little bit. Don't take the practice exam as your first study. So I recommended a book, or if you want to do your own research and do an other book to help you review, or YouTube, or a class from PPI or some other company that provides this, it's highly recommendable. But don't take the practice exam, because what will happen is you will glance over the practice exam. The practice exam will look like this. It has like questions for all the topics, and it will be more or less the flavors, and then you'll do the 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 exam. You'll go through it, and then it will tell you the right answer. But I think you will not be ready for the exam. What I would recommend is to first look at the specifications. These ones are available on the NCSS website. So if you click on exam and then FE exam, at the end they have the FE the specifications. So these are the topics that will be included on the FE exam. I see a lot of people say that they got like 20 or 30 questions of the same topic. I highly doubt that. Usually, out of those 110 questions, they are divided, so you can get like 11 from math, 6 from probability and stuff, but they usually stick to this number, and that checks out. So I remember on my exam, most of the, like all of the topic checked out. I didn't have like any surprises. And we can go through this a little bit, I think. So, for example, a big section will be math. So, mathematics involves all of these little topics. This is well covered in the book that I used, so I didn't have any issues. But this portion is very general, so I think like YouTube covers it very well in general. Probability and statistics, not the end of the world. Usually they go either on the measures of central tendencies, on probability distributions. So you also have ethics and professional practice. This one is very good source to study. They're usually not the hardest questions. You have a lot of material because everybody takes it, but it's something that I had to learn from scratch. Also, engineering economics, not the end of the world. This topic I highly recommend looking at YouTube videos and nailing the formulas before you attempt the the practice problems or the review. So I think I didn't mention this last time, but the FE handbook is a resource that's available online. You can download this for free. You should not pay for it. So when you take the exam, you will have access to this. So this handbook has all the formulas divided into topics. You have, for example, mathematics, safety, ethics. So if we click on mathematics, you have symbols. And then you start seeing formulas, for example, for a straight line. You have all the formulas for your slope. So you don't have to memorize this, but as you study, I highly recommend, for example, if you're studying over math and you're looking at algebra and trig, for example, understand where those the formulas are, right? Be ready to go into your table of contents. This will be more or less what you will see in the exam. You will have the exam on one side, and then you'll have the handbook on the other, like half and half, I would want to say. So you will see them more or less like this. So you will see the question, and then you can go through and then you can go and reference back to the handbook and look for your specific formula, right? So don't worry about the handbook, but get very familiar with it. If you don't know where your formulas are for most of your topics, you're gonna have a very hard time. Especially, I would say that ethics, mathematics, probability. Most of the topics are not used, but the electrical computer has everything. The order is a little bit not in the order of the topics, I would say, but nevertheless, I mean, when you go to a topic, for example, let's say, and you go through properties of electrical materials, and then you're looking at capacitors and inductors, when you're reviewing those topics, you might as well just be like, oh, if I'm gonna look like more or less the formula that I need for these topics are usually here or here or here. So don't learn all of this, but learn where they at, and most importantly how to use them, right? So don't memorize, for example, all of these. They'll be like, oh yeah, this. If I have asked, if I'm giving like the charge and the voltage, I can find the capacitance, for example. It's just a dumb example, but the handbook will be your best friend, and you'll have access to it on the exam. So get very familiar with it and practice a lot. Um, Now, back to the topics, like a very big one is circuit analysis. I say this topic is a lot of questions, um, and it's not the hardest questions in my opinion. Like most of the topics are relatively easy. Oh, something that I have been asked about is like, what's the score to pass, and like, there's not a definite answer. So when I took the exam after I was done, I felt like good, and I think I knew I passed. But there's not like out of 110 you have to get 70 or 80. I will talk more about this, but for example, um, learn what topics include the most questions and try to get the most out of them, especially when you if you find that, for example, circuit analysis topics that you nail, focus on it, but also try to get these topics good. Linear systems, signal processing. This one is more like on your signals class. These ones like come together more or less the same flavor of topics. Electronics a little bit challenging, but that just may be for me. Power electronics is a little bit big on the electronics section, but in general, not the easiest topics for me, but it's also very important. Power systems, I would say, wasn't the end of the world. A lot of the questions were of the same flavor, asking you to do the same setups and stuff. So if you get these ones, if you get the fundamentals, you'll be good. Electromagnetics, believe it or not, the, the formulas are not like that difficult compared to the normal EMAG. I don't know if I can find it right here. But I would say like don't stress about any topics. Like give it a shot, and then just like take it one step at a time. So you look at transmission lines for EMAG, I believe, but you see these formulas are mostly like understand the formulas, maybe manipulate them, and then plug in chunk, right? Control systems a little bit more challenging, but not really to a point where you cannot like pass it. I think control systems. I took a class in college, but there's also a lot of materials online. Same thing for communications. Computer networks, brand new for me. Um, there's a lot of videos about it, very helpful. I had to learn this from scratch, but in general, not the end of the world, and also very intuitive type of questions, in my opinion. Not very systematic. So many of these ones is more about like knowing the formulas and knowing how to use them. Computer networks is a lot about like understanding the topic intuitively, more like common sense, I would say. Digital system, another big topic, but again, it's just like I had a very good digital systems class, so and then if you review, I think you should do good. Focus on this topic because it has a lot of questions. And finally, computer systems and software engineering, they're kind of tied together, but I think it's a lot of like see what you can remember about the terminology and very simple questions, not a lot of connections to like digital circuits. But I would say these topics are not like the hardest. So these are just the 17 sections, and they all are included on the handbook. So all the topics will be here for the most part. It's just for you to get familiar with them. So once you review, you can actually take the FE handbook, and what I would recommend is making a spreadsheet with because you have like 3 minutes per question, so 100 questions for the practice exam. So that gives you like what 4 hours and 50 minutes. So I would write all the questions, and then I would write the answer, and then the actual answer, and then mark it as right or wrong. You can make your own key if you want, but do this with a timer to get the feeling of the exam. Do the same process, maybe do like 2 hours and 25 for 55 questions, and do the rest, right? I believe if you complete the first 55 questions, you cannot go back to those 55. You have to move on, but that's something to keep an eye on when you practice. Try to be as close as to what the experience is gonna be once you're on the exam. So Again, this exam reminds me a lot of the SAT or the ACT that I took in high school. Um, it's not a lot about like learning everything. Of course, you're gonna get stuff wrong, but I also don't like the as long as I pass my mindset. I think you have to have a good goal when you try to take the exam, to try to do your best. So if you do your best and you feel comfortable and you study consistently, you'll do good. That's something that I have also recommend very highly. Just practice a lot, nail your topics, and also review what you don't know. So I recommend not to leave. So if you know something very good, that's very good, but still devote time to it, right? Just to get accustomed to the flavor of questions, to the specific topics, and then just like to guarantee that you will do good in those topics. And the topics that are not good, you can ask your professors, you can ask YouTube, you can look for other resources. Um, and also another thing is just like I would say prepare and do good on your first attempt. I have heard that it's just like the SAT or ACT is difficult to get to bump up your score if you don't pass, but that's just something that I have heard. Um, and besides, because of the money, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't have like $300 just to sit around and mess with. Um, Most importantly, I also think that you shouldn't cram all the info. You should study with a plan. With at least like 6 months, I studied for 6 months daily, and I did good. So if you want to study, they both 1 year, so you don't have to study daily. That's very good, or 6 months. For example, I feel like I did a little bit of overkill on my studying, but it's better to be over prepared than to be under prepared. There's a lot of topics that you'll be like, I spent like 3 days studying this and not a single question, but it's better to do that than to go to the exam and have like 5 questions of the same topic and be like, oh, I didn't study this topic enough, right? Um, another thing that's also very important is um, about the money. Usually in universities, there's like licensing programs or like certificate programs that will pay for you. I wasn't able to register on my end because it got late for me for my application. But if you want to, I would highly recommend getting in touch with your college and see if they will pay the attempt for you. Also, if you're doing an internship or if you're like an upperclassman, you have to be an upperclassman on an Avid accredited school to take the FE. I would highly recommend talking to your employer and be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I see this as an investment. So if you wanna take it, I wanna take it. I'll pay it. But if I get a full time, you can reimburse me. Or if you're doing an internship, I can do it. For example, if you're doing a co-op, you can be like, you know what? As part of a project, I want to take this. What if you pay for it? But if I pass, I don't have to pay for it. If I don't, I'll reimburse you. Try to get those covered. I think that's something that I didn't look a lot into because the FE for electrical is very desirable, especially if you're going into the power field um, to eventually get your PE correct. I think it's also something that we don't talk about a lot on your EE. It's just the FE. I think it's like a little bit underrated because it opens you a lot on the engineering side, especially power, or if you want to do consulting. And it's something that I would say is better to study once it's fresh in your memory rather than to like be 10 years into the field and then try to come back and do like review all of this theory. So for me, it's up to you, but I would say take it while you're an upperclassman or once you're right after um, school. I would say don't wait for it. It's something that some of my colleagues at work have said they shouldn't have waited so much, but it's something that I think is like good to know. Overall, I mean, it's a hard exam, but if like with everything, if you study, if you prepare, if you practice, I think you should be good. You should be doing good. Um, don't think that's like the hardest exam ever. Like I think, for example, I had a harder time for the SAT or the ACT or whatever it was called. I took back in the day. But definitely don't take it for light. If you don't study, if you only take the practice exam and you think you're good, I don't think you're gonna do so well. But I mean, when I did it, I felt good because I felt confident. Just aim high and you'll get high results. But put in high effort, right? That's it for me. So if you got any questions, just you can leave a comment, especially for EE. I know this topic is not very covered a lot, so if you consider this, good luck and have a nice day.